I highly recommend putting it on there. Hi everybody, welcome to my channel and welcome if you're new here. Today we are going to talk about the thing that I get asked probably the most frequently from musical theater performers all over the country, which is, Julie, how do I set up my resume? I don't have any training, I don't know what to put there. I've only ever done 2 shows, but I want to have a resume. What do I do? Hopefully this video will help you. Now, let's be very clear. When it comes to anything related to theater, people have a lot of opinions. So I want you to take my advice with a grain of salt. I've had a lot of people tell me different things about resumes my whole life. And ultimately I've settled on a look and a feel that really works for me. And I've got results from it too, so I know it's working. I'm going to show you a copy of my resume and we're going to talk through different points about why it works. But before we get into that, I want to tell you the main thing that people get wrong. The main thing that people get wrong is that they don't know why they need a resume. Well, of course they know why. You got to bring it to auditions, you want to show the shows that you've done, sure, all of that. But the real reason why. So I'm going to offer a perspective change. The reason that you have a resume in acting or any profession is to show your prospective employer how much responsibility you were given in someone else's business. Let me say that again. The reason you have a resume in any profession is to show a prospective employer how much responsibility you were given in someone else's business. So when you think about what credits are going to go on there, what kind of story are you going to tell? I like people to know from my resume that I'm a character actress, that I have range, that people hire me multiple times, and that I've been hired a lot to do the same role. There's a few directors on my resume who've hired me multiple times, which means that they trust me in the scope of their business. Now, I also come from a business background, so that might sound a little like businessy, but I'm telling you that's what people are looking for. So sometimes when you have to wrestle with what exact credits to put on your resume, think about it through the lens of an employer. Remember, when you're auditioning for shows at a certain level, they are jobs. These people are going to write you a check. They should be able to look at your resume and know what people have trusted you with in the past. Have you been a dance captain? That's valuable. Have you understudied several roles? That's also valuable. Has the same theater hired you back multiple times? That shows that you're very valuable in that director or that artistic director's eyes. It also shows that you're probably a team player, that you probably learn your stuff, that they like having you around, and that's all valuable also. The general gist. So let's talk layout. I'm going to show you my resume in a few minutes, but before that, remember that this resume is going to look very different than a resume that you might have to go to a regular job. We're going to format it a little bit differently. We don't need any summary of qualifications. We don't need a work experience section. And there's some other formalities from regular resumes that we won't need here either. And also keep in mind that some people kind of get bent out of shape when they're trying to decide what goes on their resume. But a resume is not an application for employment. What you want to tell people about your work history. And in this case, in theater. So you can be choosy. You don't have to put it all on there. I've done probably, 400 shows, maybe more in my life. But I have a tight 18 credits on my resume that are broken up into 2 sections. I've also probably done 20 to 25 workshops of new shows and endless concerts. I've only chosen 4 to represent all of them. Training, I've been training since I was 5. I can't possibly put all of the training in every single person who's trained me on my resume. So I selected names and programs that I think people might recognize. And special skills, I don't have a ton of special skills, so you'll see what I did in my section. Our overview is going to look like this. Your name, big and bold at the top. Your union affiliation, Equity, SAG-AFTRA, EMC, non-union. You don't have to write non-union though, you can just leave it off completely. Your contact information, meaning your email and your phone number. If you're under 18, it is recommended that you have a family member, an adult, or a guardian put their contact information instead. If this is for musical theater performers, your vocal range, don't get too worried about this. If you're an alto who also has soprano notes, you can note that the way that I did on mine. Your height, that's very important. If they're looking to fill a role against another person, they may flip over your resume, and if they're looking for somebody to match with someone who's 5'10", if you're 5'10", they'll call you. And if you're not, they'll go on to the next person. Everybody's time is saved. And then of course your representation if you have any. I include my website instead of my personal email because my representation email is listed there instead. If you have a website, I highly recommend putting it on there. Then you will have the categories of theater that you've done. For me, I have New York theater, which is like my regional and general credits, concerts and workshops, training, and then my special skills. You may just have a general theater category, and if you're just starting out, it's okay that that category might have 2 or 3 things on it. It's all good. You're learning, right? When listing your theatrical credits, you want the far left column to be the title of the show, a middle column that is the role that you played, and then a right column that is the name of the theater. On some resumes, you may see a 4th column. That column will be all the way to the right, and that may list your directors. I find that you really only need to list your directors if there might be a name on there that people would recognize. But if you list one, you gotta list them all. That way you can have 4 neat columns. A little trick that I use, I'll format my resume and then I'll put the grid lines over it, which is just a button you can click on like Microsoft Word. That way I can make sure that they all line up. Please keep in mind that when you save a resume, you should not be saving it as a Word document. You should be saving it as a PDF and sending that PDF off. Theatrical resumes are 1 page and 1 page only. You'll see on my resume I have a little bit of color. There's varying points of view as to why not that works. It works for me. When I switched to having a little bit of color on my resume, I started getting appointments left and right. So for me, it works. I understand why there are complications around that. One last tip. Don't forget that professional headshots typically come in size 8 by 10, but your resume is going to be printed on 8.5 by 11 paper, which means that you want to make sure that your text is really contained and not too far into the margins. You're going to have to physically trim the outside of your resumes to make sure that they fit and can be stapled evenly against your headshots. So we will go to my website, and so I've got this set up, and I can go through websites at another point in time. So I'm going to select, for me, is going to be under my media. And you're going to select Open Download Resume. So it's really important that we always have our resumes very easily accessible. All right, so I keep on my desktop a folder called Actor Materials, and here I have a copy of my headshot as an image, and then I have a copy of my headshot as a PDF. Some casting directors prefer it as a PDF. And then I have a combined option, and this actually has a PDF of my headshot and of my resume combined, and here's a PDF of my resume. So let's click that. Here's a copy of my resume. Now, I like color. Some people might tell you that they don't like color or that it's bad for one reason or another. I've never had an issue. I know sometimes casting directors and offices can always just print in black and white, so it's not a big deal. The second that I changed to a little bit of color on my resume, and the second that I tightened up what's available here, I started getting appointments left and right. So for me, it definitely works. So you'll see at the top I have my name, my representation logo, and their contact information, my height, my voice part, my website, and my union status. You can certainly have all of this information lined up lengthwise as opposed to width, but for me, I liked width. Also, when you're just starting out, you might want to take up more space on your resume, so going up and down might be more beneficial. Now remember, you can play with font size and you can play with font type, but of course remember never to have more than 3 different fonts on a resume. I've kept mine very simple, and I have the same font used over and over again. I just varied the size of it. On my resume, I have 5 sections: New York theater, concerts and workshops, training, and then special skills at the bottom. I have it formatted so my New York credits are first, then my theater, which includes my regional credits, and some professional credits in New Jersey, where I live. In this section, I also have some community theater credits because we're very lucky here in New Jersey. Our community theaters are run by people who are professionals throughout the entire country. This gentleman right here, Brian Swayze, he is the associate producer, I believe that's his title, at the Ogunquit Playhouse in Maine. So there are some people on here that I really want to make sure that are representative. I've noted a few things that are important, like here I played my flute on stage, and here I played my flute on stage. That's important for a team to know. Under my theater credits, these are not necessarily in chronological order. These are just in an order that I think would be captivating for someone to read. So if they only made it to here, they would at least see that I did Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd, and that's important to me. It's also taken me a long time to establish that these are the credits that I want to be showcased. I have hand selected each of these for a very specific reason. It could be the show, the role, the place, or the director. And every time that I have to get rid of something, it just really makes me sad. Then I have concerts and workshops. I was very lucky to perform at the Easter Bonnet competition in 2018 under the direction of Luis Salgado and Revolution Latina. That was a really cool experience. And I have a ton more that are not listed here. These are just ones that I thought were varied and showed that I work with a lot of different people. Training, of course, where my degree is from. The people that I worked with, they have a little bit of a spacing issue here, but it really doesn't bother me too much, so I'm just going to leave it for now. Now, dance. I have a ton of dance experience. I've actually danced for a really long time. But if I were to put all my dance here, it would definitely imply that I am a dancer. But I want people to know what I do well. I have a strong tap and I move pretty well, so I kind of made a joke here. And then under my special skills, of course, we include our passport and driver's license. If that's something that you have and want to share, you of course do not need to share it. Extensive IFP and teleprompter experience as I host for AT&T Global Industrials. Various dialect, flute, onstage, and off book with notice, meaning don't just throw it at me and think I'll be able to do it. I need a little bit of time. And then I wanted to make a joke here. My number 1 special skill is that I've done Songs for a New World 7 times, and it never gets easier. I don't think that we have to have the times that we've done shows multiple times on our resume. Like if I just listed all of my songs for a New World here, that's all I would do is list my songs for a New World. But there are a few that I've highlighted, right? I have 2 Legally Blondes, 2 Ragtimes. I've actually done Legally Blonde more than twice. And I've done Songs for a New World 7 times. I've done Secret Garden 6 times. I've done The Bee 3 times. I've done The Mystery of Edwin Drood 3 times. I've done Wendy's Shadow for 5 years. I did Show Cry the Musical for 5 years. I've done Violet twice. So a lot of the shows on my resume I've done multiple times. I'm not going to put the multiple credits unless it's something that I really think is a role that I'll continue to book. Legally Blonde, I want them to see that I do the show a lot. Ragtime, I want them to see that I do the show a lot. And that's my resume. If you found this video helpful, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to help you with any questions you may have, and you may inspire another video. I'm also available to help you format your resume if you just go to my website and click that service. We can make something that's really fun and personal to you. Please go ahead and subscribe by clicking the big red button. If you found this helpful, please give it a big thumbs up, leave a comment, and share with people who might also find it helpful. Let's demystify how we do some things. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you soon.